Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and you're listening to and or watching the snobOS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We want to welcome you to episode 114 of the snobOS show, and we're actually going to get right into it. The first subject segment is the lowdown, where we talk all things Apple, and for our first story, we're going to talk about Apple being back on top as the number one smartphone maker. So, Apple for the past couple years, Apple and Samsung have been back and forth as the number one smartphone seller. If you are an Android user, most of your devices are going to be from Samsung. Of course, there's HTC, there's Huawei, there's all of these other smaller smartphone manufacturers. OnePlus is a popular one, but you're rocking Samsung if you're an Android user. And, Apple and Samsung have been back and forth, but the last time Apple has been on top of Samsung was 2016. So 2016 on to recently, Samsung has been in number one spot. But according to new research from Gartner, it indicates that the iPhone 12 helped Apple sell more than 80 million units in quarter four 2020, making it the world's biggest smartphone vendor. Now, of course, we don't know how long that's going to last. Because again, like I said, Apple and Samsung have always kind of traded spots, every so on.
Serena and Venus.
Right. But yeah, so that's a nice little reward for Apple and the iPhone 12. That kind of shows that Apple did something right with the iPhone 12. In addition to that, it kind of notes in the story that Huawei saw a sharp decline in sales of 41% during the
Wow.
quarter, falling behind Zowie, I'm not
Mm.
saying that right, and Oppo as the fifth largest handset maker. And I think, don't quote me on this, do your own research. But I think maybe the reason why Huawei kind of dropped down was because Trump and his administration claimed that Huawei was they halted the sales of Huawei handsets in America because, of course, Huawei is made in China.
Mm-hmm.
We've had our back and forth relationships with China, and it was claimed or deemed to be a security threat that American users, were using Huawei, products when they have a connection to China. The same issue that the Trump administration had with TikTok and some of these other apps that are made in China. So maybe, the American administration, Trump administration, Huawei taking a ding, maybe that contributed to Apple's rise. Of course, we don't want to attribute it to that. We want to attribute it to the iPhone 12 sales, but maybe there may be something there. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to put that out there. The Apple's back on top. Who knows how long that'll last? But from now, right now, Apple and the iPhone 12 specifically are doing pretty good, which again, I hope that means that the stock is going to go back up soon. Cause right now Apple stock is kind of teetering in the middle. After they reported their earnings, it kind of dropped down a little bit. So I'm hoping this new news, will
Fix it back up.
get it back up so I can retire early.
It looks like the 5G finally being, on iPhone devices is probably what really sealed it for folks. Because even though I think the new OS 14, iOS 14, had a lot to do with that. I think probably when you look at it as a whole and take the face value of it, the 5G, which was the big thing that they were selling and touting on the iPhone 12, was probably what really did it.
Okay. All right. So, all right, let's move on to the next story. If you are out there and you have purchased a M1 Mac, the Apple Silicon with a new chip, or if you've got an Intel MacBook, which most of us probably already have, there is a malware named Silver Sparrow that is targeting both Intel and M1 Max. Researchers over at Red Canary, a security operations firm, discovered and named it Silver Sparrow, and as of now has been detected in 153 countries, with a higher number of cases in the US, Canada, UK, Germany, and France. Red Canary explained how it's been keeping an eye on the malware for over a week. I haven't been able to find exactly what it does. Let me see if I can look through the story and see. But it has no evidence of yet a harmful payload. It appears security types can't quite pinpoint the malware's motives. So just, I guess,
That's even scarier than knowing what it
exactly.
actually
That's what I'm
does
saying.
do.
The fact that, it brings relief to know, okay, well, this is what's happening. So let's work on a solution. But the fact that they don't know what it's about to do or going to do or what the potential, it's kind of got people freaked out.
And
So
it doesn't look like I'm looking through the article. It doesn't look like they can, there's a way to tell if you've been infected or not.
right, right. But I think maybe some of the worry is the fact that this has affected the M1 Max. You would think that Apple creating its own chip, on top of all of the security, T2 security chip that Apple's already employing in these new Macs, it is kind of surprising that this new technology was, attacked so soon. You would think
Hmm.
it would take, hackers or whomever that created this malware, you would think it would take them, half a month, 6 months, to almost a year before they can crack into brand new technology, specifically from Apple, which is so concerned about security and data. The fact that they were able to put this malware on M1 chips, within just what the M1 was announced in November or October.
Hmm.
That's not even, it hasn't even been 4 or 5 months yet. They're
But I
already.
think also to keep in mind too, these hackers can get the developer build. Remember they sent out
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. True, true,
the
true,
devices
true,
for
true.
people to build their,
Yeah,
apps on. I mean, anybody, they could have easily signed up for
yeah.
that program and got a couple, and instead of working on, making their apps compatible, they could have been doing some malicious type activities.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, just Apple's recent statement: Apple has confirmed to Mashable, the story that we're the blog that we're reading this from, confirmed to Mashable that after discovering the malware, it's since retracted the certificates of the developer accounts used to
Hmm.
sign the packages. So no
Yeah.
new Macs are prevented from being infected. So that leads to what you were just saying, that they use developer accounts to
Hmm.
place this
To slip
malwares.
it in there.
Right. So, that's been, about almost a year
Hmm.
that the, developer version of the M1 devices went out. So sounds like they've had some time to do this. And I would have think that they would have hid their access versus putting it on some developer accounts. But maybe they just wanted to
That's
try it.
surprising.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they just
They
wanted to
wanted to
see if
know.
it, or just want to see if it will work. It's like, all right, what's the lowest barrier of entry? All right, we've got the developer accounts. Let's just use those to see if we can get in there. As long as they can't trace it back to us, we're not going to do anything. Potentially, we just want to see if we can get in. And looks
And
like
you
they
could be,
succeeded.
yeah, you could be onto something. This Silver Sparrow could not really do anything. It was just a test run, and now they know they can get in. They can actually, do something malicious or follow through with the next step in their plan, or whatever it is. But yeah, you might be on something there. That could definitely be it.
All right, all right. So that was pretty much it for from what I could glean from the news as relates to Apple. There were a couple other stories about renders of the iPhone 13. There was some more talk about Apple Glass, but nothing substantiated. All kind of rumor stuff. So I kind of left those alone. So we'll all said that. We'll just move on to second string, where we talk all things tech in general. Again, kind of a slow moving tech scene, slow tech stories, because everybody's focused on, COVID. Everybody's focused on, NASA landing that
On
Mars
the
rover.
Rover.
We'll talk about a little bit later. But something I did find that was kind of interesting in tech news is developers or creators. It's just a concept right now, but they have created a ring that you can put on, like an actual ring that you can actually flip a switch, and it kind of hides you from anybody, anything tracking your data. Basically, it kind of connects to your smartphone. You can kind of go in to the settings and kind of customize and tweak, how you want it tracked. Do you want your location tracked? Do you want any sort of health data being tracked? Do you want advertisers to track you? You can kind of go through and make these settings. But then once you've got those settings tweaked and customized, you can actually put the ring on. So if you're at a party or at a major event, I hope you're not via this whole COVID thing, but if you are, and you are concerned about people tracking your location, advertisers tracking you to, it's almost kind of forward thinking. So you think about the Minority Report, with the movie Minority Report, where Tom Cruise is walking through the building and all the advertisers are jumping in his face. They can read his eyes and see, okay, he's this person, he's bought these things, so let's put all these ads, right? We haven't got there yet, but this ring is almost like thinking ahead, thinking, okay, this stuff is coming to where they're going to be able to track my location, and based on where I am in proximity to things, we're going to serve him these ads, and they're either going to pop up on a billboard or pop up in augmented reality or pop up on your phone. This ring, if it ever comes to that, you can actually come in and if you notice that advertisers are tracking you around, you can actually flip a switch on this ring and it'll cut off all that technology. So I thought that was pretty cool that you're actually kind to think ahead. And because we know that, we're being more and more bombarded with data requests and privacy requests, and companies like Apple, for example, are trying to answer the call to make sure that their users, at the very least, are saying, hey, you can trust that we're not selling your data, whatever. It's just the fact that, they're actually forward thinking and saying, hey, this is coming. So let's try something and see if we can make people feel more comfortable about that.
Right.
Yep. So, yeah, that's all I want to put about that. I thought that was, pretty cool. Let's move on to the next story. Like I mentioned, I think everybody, myself included, I've had some, some doubts. I ain't gonna put it out there because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. But let's just say, me and space travel and space exploration, I'm not your guy for that. But I can say that, I was pretty surprisingly interested in NASA actually landing their Perseverance rover safely without any sort of, hiccups or catastrophes. They landed their Perseverance rover on Mars. And more importantly, well, not more importantly, more interesting was now NASA starting to get back a lot of the video and images and sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surprisingly been checking Twitter and actually looking around and actually sitting on
Checking
YouTube,
out the images and
right,
stuff.
looking at videos. I'm like, this is, pretty interesting, because like I said, I'm not a space dude, at all, but I thought it was pretty interesting to see, in clarity, because some of these images are pretty high
They're pretty
resolution,
clear.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually go and see if I can show some of these images. Let me see if I can find a couple of them. Let's see if we can put these on here. We're going to do this live. So for people who are actually listening, you just have to imagine that I am showing you images of some of the pictures from the Perseverance rover that just landed on Mars as of early last week or earlier this year, earlier this week. I can't remember. So let's see, February 24th, 2021. So these are more,
The sound just came in, I think, today.
yeah,
The
okay.
audio from the say, but
So
yeah.
this, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, folks can click the links in the show notes who are listening and
Yeah,
follow
right,
along.
right, right. But for those who are actually watching, I've put on screen just some of the images. It looks pretty clear. My impressions of Mars, it was always cloudy, a whole bunch of
Foggy,
storms.
hazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It looks pretty clear. You've got pictures of ridges. You can see off in the distance there are some mountain or hill ranges. This particular picture I'm looking at right now, this shows the rim of the Jezero crater as seen in the first 360-degree panorama taken by the massed CAMZ instrument aboard NASA's Perseverance Mars rover. So, I just thought that was interesting personally, from a personal standpoint, because I didn't think I'd actually care. But
I mean,
come,
but it really is, honestly, it is. I'm a space person. If I could go to space, I would.
oh, really?
Yes, in a
Okay.
heartbeat. Um, but I think that's just my adventure nature side. I'm a extreme. I like activities like that. But
Okay.
yeah, it's I've been following it as well, and just seeing the capability. I think Mars is 127 million light years away, or some crazy number,
Yeah.
and just to see that we can land a rover, a robot essentially, that far away. We can get sound, we can get images. And I don't know if in this round, if they're doing soil samples or not, but I think in a previous iteration, they maybe have gotten soil samples or something. But it's just the fact that we have the technology that can do this on one hand is mind blowing and it's amazing. And at the same time, it's like we can't do some of the most basic stuff here on Earth. But I mean, putting it in perspective, the amount of money that goes into the space program and the folks who work at the space program, of course, they're very brilliant people. They have one focus in mind and they are putting all of their, efforts towards that, as related to some of the social issues or whatever that we have. But I just think that when you look at the money that the space program has as compared to maybe some of the other areas of government, what they're able to do with the, I won't say limited resources, but limited in the thinking of it in respect to the other slices of the pie in the whole government will of expenditures. It's quite amazing what they are able to accomplish
Yeah, that is a another subject for another day for another
for another day.
podcast. But not to rain on the parade, but it's just nice to see that they are actually putting, I guess, like you said, putting the money, all the money, to
Mhm.
good use. So basically,
Mhm.
what I'm showing on the video version of the podcast, I'm actually showing the video of the Mars rover actually landing on the Mars surface. So it's pretty, like I said, and they actually show, multi-camera angles. They show what the rover is looking at on the ground. They show, what the rover's the landing. I don't know
It's
what you
like a
call it.
first person. It's like a first person view if you were actually controlling the rover.
Right, right. And they actually show, pictures of the people celebrating from when it actually touched down. So it was pretty cool. So all that to
Yeah.
say, I was surprisingly invested
Yeah.
into the Mars rover. So I just thought that was pretty cool. All right. So again, like I said, the next story we'll get into is TikTok. Like I mentioned, in the pre-show, companies like TikTok have been under the pressure of the American government because it is an app or a service that originated or has ties to China, and most recently they have started to maybe show some goodwill, and they are starting to crack down on the amount of fake news that has been shared or distributed on their platform. So, according to TikTok, the company removed more than 340,000 videos in the US during the second half of 2020 for spreading election misinformation, disinformation, or manipulated media. During that same period, TikTok also removed over 50,000 videos promoting misinformation about COVID-19. It should be noted that TikTok made the decision to ban content promoting the right-wing QAnon conspiracy theory during the same time frame covered by this transparency report. So, with one fell swoop, it looks like by getting rid of a lot of the QAnon conspiracy accounts or any sort of content related, tagged, or associated with QAnon, it looks like that was the lion's share of all of these videos spreading information about, presidential election and COVID-19. So, in addition to the removed content, TikTok also deleted 1,750,000 accounts for quote unquote automation during the same time period as the U.S. election. The company maintains that it was unclear if any of these accounts were being used to boost political information, but viewed it as important to remove these automated accounts at the same time. So I'm assuming automated means these accounts were created and just based on the way they were posting, sharing, liking, commenting, maybe it was apparent that there wasn't a real person behind
Like
the helm.
bots.
Yeah, like a
Just
bot.
bots.
Basically,
Yeah.
basically that's what it was. Bot accounts that were just there to, created in by the dozens by people looking to share, spread this misinformation that they have removed. In all, TikTok says it removed more than 89 million videos globally during the second half of 2020 for violating the platform's community guidelines or terms of service. Nearly 12 million of those videos were posted by users in the States. So, surprisingly, it wasn't, Russia or
Hmm.
China or some other, off-site entity. It was United States users, whether,
But are we
I guess, I guess,
surprised?
I guess not. Seeming as since a lot of people get their information off the internet, and not just off the internet, they get it off of social media. Which social media, their primary way of running their business is user generated content. And we've already talked about the fact that they really don't know how to moderate that. It's almost damn near impossible to moderate millions and millions and millions of posts, comments, shares, videos on social media. So, these companies, even though they're starting to kind of crack down on some of this stuff, we've talked about at length,
Hmm.
Twitter banning Donald Trump, Facebook cutting into a lot of the, political information, they're starting to do it, but, just from this, the quotes and the statistics that I read from this TikTok video, just with TikTok, they removed over 89 million,
Wow.
videos, user generated videos. So all that to say, these social media companies, these internet companies, all of these brands and platforms that utilize user generated content as their main way of operating, something's going to have to change because this stuff is not slowing down because people, their main source of information is via social media nowadays.
Hmm.
Yep. So,
At least they're, taking a stab at it. And I think when we talked about it before, that was what we were kind of, talking about. Like, what approach would they take to this? Would they start now and start cleaning things up? Would they go back in the future? How will they continue to monitor it? So yeah, it's a lot. And in where we are right now in this whole social media game, it just changes literally, day by day. You cut one head off and another one grows. So I think they're probably taking the best approach that they possibly can with where we are.
yeah, I honestly just think this Pandora's box, they're not going to be able to get it closed. The only way they're going to get it closed is if they start charging people subscriptions to utilize these platforms. And my speculation is if I have to pay to use Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, I'm going to be more cognizant about what I share, about what I read, about what I, discuss because my money is tied to it. it's nothing for somebody to go on these free platforms and just share whatever they want to share, because outside of not having access to it, there's really no repercussion unless they can
Hmm.
specifically tie you to you saying something or you sharing something, and that directly leads to a specific act, which again, like I said, they weren't able to get Trump on it. They they impeached him, but that was just like a, hey, we saw you.
We saw what you did.
That really wasn't,
Chuckle,
hey,
chuckle, chuckle.
right, that really wasn't a, you said this thing, it led to this thing, now you're going to jail.
Hmm.
And I think it's going to be an impossible task, especially with all this information out there. Now they're trying it with the people who stormed the Capitol, but just me being a cynic, I don't think anybody's going to see any hard time as a result of that. Even when you can actually see them committing a crime, and that's for reasons that another day, another topic,
Yeah,
another
because I
another
think
podcast.
yeah, I think with that, if you think about it, I think maybe 300 or so people have been arrested and charged, and some of the Capitol Police officers involved have been suspended or fired. But when you look at the grand scheme of how many people were there, the ones that they've arrested is just a tiny, tiny fraction of that number.
Right.
And I think probably the only people who will get some actual severe consequences are the ones that can actually tie to the actual murder or harm
Or
to,
destruction of
those police,
property.
yeah, up to those police officers. I don't even necessarily say destruction of property, because we saw what happened with the guy who took the lectern. I think he was able to go home on like bail or something, and the
Right.
girl who stole Nancy Pelosi's computer, she was able to go home, even though she was still doing some shady stuff and, not following the rules. And they still, said, smack you on the hand
Yeah.
and then let you go home. So I think probably the only real consequences that we may see are, from the folks who actually caused bodily harm to
Right.
some of those police officers. But
And
then that's still not guaranteed, because they're still, it seems they're protecting
right.
the rioters.
Right.
So
And that's not, again, going back to the story, that has nothing to do with the people who are just spreading information. Of
right.
course, the FBI, who knows what the chain of command from, this stuff being spread on the internet from October on until January something, to where, the FBI passed it along to, all that. So,
Yeah.
all that to say,
Like you said, Pandora's box is open, and
yeah.
getting it back closed and getting everything back in it is probably not very likely.
Yep, this is the new normal. So hopefully they do what they can, do what's best, but also that human data, that human user generated content is what they use to make money. So the less, the more of it, the more for them to make off of it. So that comes with a lot of good, and it comes with a lot of bad.
Yes, it does.
All right. So we're moving on to the next segment. This is for the culture and for the month of February. Nica has done an excellent job of making us aware of, any, people we need to be checking for in the tech industry while black. So I'll let her go ahead and talk about a couple of people that, I know personally. So I just want to,
Yep.
have her go over some of these people, who are making waves in the tech industry.
All right. In our final entry for Tech and While Black for this Black History Month, we are actually going to highlight a trifecta of people that include Jewel Burke Solomon, Justin Dawkins, and Barry Givens, also known as the founders and managing partners of Collab Capital. And Collab Capital is an investment fund that leverages financial, human, and social capital, and it helps founders build sustainable technology enabled businesses, mostly focusing on Black founders with early stage startups, by providing capital investments and connecting them with other corporate sponsors and social influencers. And one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight them is because they are leading a VC based here in Atlanta that is specifically catering to Black founders. Now we know that there are other VCs that are for people of color, are for women, are for the LGBT community, are for folks that are disabled. But I wanted to highlight this one because it's specifically, a lot of times we talk about POCs. I personally don't consider myself a POC. I am a Black person, and there's nothing wrong with calling a Black person an actual Black person. And POC is person of color, so that runs the range of non-white people. So you have Asian, Latino, Hispanic, South Asian,
Indian,
Indian,
Middle Eastern Indian.
Middle Eastern. So it covers the range of the melanin spectrum, but their group, Collab Capital, is catering specifically to Black founders. So the first founder, I guess we'll talk about, is Jewel Burke Solomon. She founded ParkPic, which is a visual recognition company, which she actually sold to Amazon back in 2016, and she also currently serves as the head of Google Startups here in the US. Justin Dawkins is an entrepreneur and a full stack developer, as well as co-founder for of Goody Nation, which helps entrepreneurs launch their tech-enabled social impact businesses. And he has personally helped over 30 entrepreneurs in that space. And finally, Barry Givens, who founded a beverage system. I think he is a mechanical engineer. Don't quote me 100% on that, but I know that he does have an engineering background. And he founded, I'm going to say this is Monsignor, which raised over 4 million in capital, which he was in turn able to license the IP for that to leading adult beverage dispenser manufacturer, and he is also the managing director of Tech Star Social Impact Accelerator.
Okay.
So I met. I'm a member of the Gathering Spot here in Atlanta, and I went to one of the events that they had where each of which when they all spoke, and it was very informative. It was really great to see what they've been able to accomplish with their fund as it relates to increasing Black wealth by basically linking, individual founders with corporate sponsors and other influencers and different investment partners as well.
Yep, yep. Like I said, me and Justin go way back. To back to the days of South by Southwest. Teamed up to do some, early. This is for back when people were pitching startups in RVs in Texas during the South by Southwest, which is a big tech innovation, music, film event. I'm not sure how popular it is today. Of
It's
course,
still
with
pretty popular.
yeah, of course, COVID put the kibosh on a lot of those
Yep.
huge, everybody up on top of each other type events. But yeah, so I met him back in 2013 and South by Southwest, and a bunch of us kind of partnered up to try to launch a startup. So that was pretty cool, to see, start from there to actually do a
To kind of
lot.
go full circle.
A lot in the in the tech space in Atlanta. So yeah, shout out to them for doing that. These people our age. That goes back
Yeah.
to the thing you were mentioning. This is Black History Now. This isn't
Yeah.
somebody who is on the opposite end of their career, reflecting on a life that they had and finally getting their flowers for all the things that they've done. These are people doing stuff now. So I think that's pretty cool to lead, for the future, I guess, of Black
Right.
history.
And we don't know where, I mean, based on what they're doing now and the level of work that they're doing now, I mean, who's to say 10, 15, 20 years from now, what the possibilities are. And I think that's one of the things that I really wanted to highlight, when we talked about Black history this month is the strides that are being made now with people our age and younger. I mean, even people older. I mean, if you're innovating now, you're laying the groundwork and the foundation for your kids, Terrance, and my nieces and nephews to be talking about these folks, how we talk about
The inventor of the
um,
super soaker, and
yeah,
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 right.
how we talk about and how we revere them, and then just to see that a lot of them are really not just getting started, but they still have more road of them ahead. So it's really great, and I just think that what a lot of these funds that are catering to Black people and other POCs and women and other underrepresented groups is truly pushing the needle forward. And if you are one of our Patreon supporters and you heard our pre-show conversation, you can see how this kind of ties back to that conversation that we had. So,
Absolutely. All right, all right. So moving on, Nica also found a story about a scientist looking to turn Jackson, Mississippi, into a tech hub. I think the popular place, we mentioned just in the previous story, a lot of tech startups in the South is originating in Atlanta. But Georgia is not the only place that is looking to turn itself into a tech hub. So it looks like scientists trying to get Jackson, Mississippi. So I'll let you share a little bit more about that story.
right. So I saw this story pop up on my Twitter feed. Was it yesterday or either the day before? And so Nashley Cephas, she's an AI researcher for Amazon, a Black AI researcher. And she's based, of course, here in Atlanta, where her work is. But she's from Jackson, Mississippi. She has an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering. She got a master's and a PhD from Georgia Tech in computer engineering. And she was actually kind of tying back to the Teching While Black. She was the CTO of PartPick, which
Okay.
was the company that Jewel Burke Solomon sold to Amazon. But what she's been able to do is create a tech that her goal is to create a tech hub out of 12 abandoned acres in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of downtown Jackson, Mississippi, where she's from. And the story, it's a great read. We'll definitely include it in the show notes, and I would definitely suggest that everybody take a look at it because her path to this wasn't something that she'd even planned for. It was something that arose out of an incubator that she started back in 2016 called the Bean Path, which was helping, it's a nonprofit that was helping local businesses in Jackson, Mississippi, with their techniques for their companies. So it kind of started there, I think, based on the article. That was the thought process. And then, just looking at her community, she saw that, in Jackson, there was all this abandoned space. And then she had the idea to transform that into into a tech hub. And of course, we've talked about it before, and we'll I'm sure talk about it again. The level of effort that it takes for Black people to get investors. So I think the total space is like 500,000 square feet of workspace, and the goal is to turn this into a mixed space where you have an electronics lab, a photography studio, apartments, a space where artisans can make things, restaurants, grocery store, apartments. So you can have a place where you can truly live and work and play. And she talked about further in the article how she took, I think, $500,000 of her own money to get this started and was able to crowd fund and family raise the remaining amount. And I want to say, I'm trying to find it specifically in the article, I think she said three banks in Jackson, Mississippi um, turned her down, and she was able to just recently find uh, a bank to take it. Yeah, here it is. She put up $500,000 of her own savings to get the deal done and raised 150,000 in a friends and family round. And it says she plans to further the project with private investments, crowdfunding rounds, grants, etc. But the thing is, she was just now able to secure funding for the space. So that's, I guess, the foundation, making sure that you own the space, but now building it out. I just think that this is very ambitious, and the audacity that she has to take this on and move forward with this, I just think it's just fantastic, and it takes a lot of stamina and strength and foresight to take something like this on, all while still having your corporate interests, and she has her nonprofit. So I just think if we can start to build, again, tying back to what we talked about in the pre-show, you know creating environments that specifically are for underrepresented groups, for the Black community, is one of the ways that we can attack some of the issues that we're seeing from the gatekeeping and the exclusionary nature of the tech community. And definitely, kudos to her for having a foresight to do this, and the will and the willingness to do it, because I can only imagine the amount
Roadblocks.
of roadblocks and challenges and frustrations that she's had to get to this point. But the good thing is she has secured the land deal, so that's a major hurdle that she's accomplished. And I just think looking forward, I think we can expect to see some great things coming out of Jackson, Mississippi with this space, and hopefully other you know Black communities around the country will kind of see this and say, you know what, we can put this in our town too, because Jackson isn't, I don't think it's super huge. I've been to Jackson a few times. It's not, a huge city like an Atlanta or a Charlotte, that has a Detroit, that has a high, Black community. But it is on maybe your medium size scale. And why not turn these communities into these tech spaces? It helps everybody. It brings in jobs, it brings in a robust economy, and I just think we could all take a lesson from this.
Yeah, and it kind of if you build it, they will come, right? So you kind of
Yep.
mentioned, Jackson, Mississippi doesn't have it's not a huge city, but the fact of the matter of it is a majority Black city.
Hmm.
This kind of goes into, again, kind of letting you know that we kind of talked about this in the pre-show. So if you are not a Patreon subscriber, I suggest you do so you can get the lowdown on this information you're missing out on. But it kind of goes along my line of thought to where, we have to ask the gatekeepers to give us the ability to do things like that. And I think one of the reasons why we have to is because we are, as Black people, we are spread out across the country, all in these little pockets.
Hmm.
There is a thought, there is a ideal out there that what if we wasn't so spread out? What if we were more centrally consolidated and located? What if, you think about the Great Migration of the early 1900s and late 1800s, where after, slavery was deemed illegal, a lot of Black folks who were situated in Mississippi, in Louisiana, in Georgia, in Alabama, in South Carolina, on up the coast to Maryland, Delaware, so on and so forth. We moved away from those areas and moved into the Chicagos, into the Detroits, into the Indianapolis, Ohio, and moved out west. What if there was something called a reverse migration, to where we all started to kind of migrate back down to areas like Jackson, Mississippi,
Hmm.
because there are opportunities like this big tech hub in Jackson, Mississippi, because Atlanta, Georgia is the leading area for Black tech innovation, because Georgia has now started to realize that with the number of people there, if they got more involved in voting, we could turn a state, from Republican to Democratic based on how Black people primarily vote, right?
Hmm.
What if you could do this reverse migration. So that all goes back to, there's a book I'm reading called The Devil You Know, and the author Charles M. Blow actually introduces this idea to where, what if we wasn't so spread out across the country, if we moved back down to states like Jackson, Mississippi, Jackson specific,
Alabama,
Alabama, and he
Louisiana.
lays out like this,
Yeah.
group of states to where, just due to demographics,
Hmm.
we had the numbers to where we could push a lot of these efforts stateside, because the only thing in the Constitution is states, United States of America. States still control a lot of the resources,
Hmm.
like the ability to give Miss Cephas the ability to actually start this tech hub. That's state controlled stuff. Of course, VCs and all this other stuff, they could be anywhere, but, going to a bank, going to the city, going to the state, if there were a large concentration of people in the political realm, we're sending senators, we're sending governors, we've got all these black mayors, to where it wouldn't be so hard for her to jump through all these hoops to get this funding to launch something like this that would help everybody.
That would help everybody. And
Right.
that's what's really baffling. She's proven that she has the capability and the business sense to bring something like this.
And it's
Um,
not far fetched because Atlanta's doing it right now. So,
right.
it's not
And
this
the fact
brand
that
new
she put
thing.
up and the fact that she put up $500,000, a half a million of her own money to get this deal done for three of the banks in the community where she's trying to help to get turned down. I just it's not really baffling, but it's baffling.
Right. So it all goes to, there's going to come a time to where we are going to start to make some moves on our own that will give us better control of our own destiny. So I just think, in addition to, moving into and requesting that big companies, in our case, big tech companies, start to provide more equity, start to provide more equality, there's some things that we can do on our own as well to kind of lay our own groundwork, to lay our own foundation. Now, I personally may not directly benefit, but my kids maybe, and my
Hmm.
kids' kids, to where they'll
Hmm.
be able to pick a city to where they don't have to worry about something as simple as a race being a barrier to entry for anything they want to do. So
Hmm.
again, like I said, just that's again, I've been saying it all podcast long. That is a discussion for a whole nother time, date, and podcast. So we'll just leave it at that. I don't have anything for the hookup for this week. So if you don't have anything else, Nica, I think we're going to end the show on that note. We want to thank you all for listening. If you could, please download, rate, and review us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Like Nica mentioned last week, if you could rate and review us, that goes a long way to helping us rise up the ranks of these podcast platforms. If you want to engage with us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, we are at snobOS Cast. Please watch us on YouTube at snobOS Cast. Of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like, rate, subscribe, notifications, do all the YouTube things. If you want to leave us comments and suggestions, you can definitely do that. We're on the web at snoboscast.com, and we're on email at snoboscast@gmail.com. Of course, a huge help would be to support our show on Patreon. We are on patreon.com/snoboscast. You will, for as little as $5 a month, get access to all that extra content we have been talking about during the regular show. You'll get access to the show as it is taped live, so you'll get it early, and you get access to our snobist community. So we definitely want to give a shout out to all our current Patreons. If you don't want to do $5 a month, if you want to do a one-time love offering, you can do so via PayPal. We are at paypal.me/snobOS. That would go a long way as well. And other than that, we are done this week. So until next week, we are out.
Bye.
Peace.